Welcome back to this taking a carb off an engine channel. Today we're taking off the electron carb from this 50cc supercharged two-stroke engine. We're going to perform a somewhat sacrilegious modification to it and then put it back on and test the engine. This being electron carb, there's no main jet on this main fuel delivery tube thing, like you'd see on most other carbs. It relies solely on the grind of the metering rod. And in my case, this grind is fine up until close to full throttle. Then it gets far too much fuel. It has too much of a scoop at the end here. This hole is probably around 3.1, 3.2 millimeters. This is an American carb, so this is probably drilled to an imperial size. With this scooped out rod in there at high throttle openings, it's probably around the equivalent of like 2.5, maybe even 3 millimeter main jet. I could get a rod with a different grind, but I'm quite happy with how this works up until the last bit here. The plan is to install a main jet in this electron carb. Will probably be the first electron ever with a main jet. This is a 210 main jet. Should be a good starting point. Looks to be enough material here to drill out a hole and tap it for these main jets. Unfortunately, I haven't got taps for this thread. It's a 6mm 0.75 thread, I think, maybe 0.7. That's unfortunate. I need to find those tomorrow. Another problem is with the slide in here and fully seated. That metering rod almost extends all the way out to the tip here. I would have to make the main jet large enough to accommodate the tip of this rod. We could use a super simple solution like this, a piece of tubing with the main jet pushed into it. Also got to make sure this doesn't bottom out on the floor of the float bowl. Might need to cut some slits in it or something. So this is one possible solution. I got to my senses and realized a piece of tubing with a main jet stuck in it, pushed onto the tube here. That's a really half-assed way of doing this. We need to drill and tap this to fit these jets. I found the correct tap locally. I'm gonna pick one up tomorrow morning. I'm gonna use this 110 jet as a test subject. I'm gonna drill it out to 2 millimeters and I'm gonna counterbore it to 3.5 to accommodate the metering rod. Hopefully there will be enough material left to keep the threads intact and all. So that's what we're going to do now. If this doesn't work, then it won't be possible to use a main jet like this here. So a 3.5mm counterbore, that's not a problem at all, it seems. Let's hope a 5mm hole in the carb is not a problem either. And then 0.75 6mm threads in that hole. I'll pick up the tap and tap the hole tomorrow and install that main jet, and we'll see how this works. I picked up this cheap set with a bunch of different tap sizes, including the one I need. I actually think this is more economical than buying just one of these in a higher quality. I'll probably use this like twice a year. Same thing goes for a couple of these other taps. That's enough threads. Perfect. What we've done here is pretty much convert this electron to a normal carb. Separated metering of full throttle from the rest of the range. There will be a point where the metering rod is no longer the restriction. This is completely reversible. Whenever I get that nitro license and I can run higher percentages of nitro and thereby need more fuel, I can just remove this main jet and we'll be back to same as before. I'm opening up my power jets again for a safe starting point. 3 turns should do it. I can pinch this if needs be. Let's see how it behaves. I have a tendency to forget putting on my safety equipment, especially this mask and my face shield, which I haven't worn in a long while now. And stuff like refilling fuel an arm's length away from my gas burner and forgetting to turn it off. In situations like this, NordVPN can help you. Well, not really. But they're really useful in other situations, like when you're really impatient like me and you can't bear waiting for stuff to get shipped to you and you have to fly out and pick stuff up yourself. NordVPN comes in real handy for booking cheap flights. The trick is to use NordVPN to log onto a server in a really low income country. Then you'll appear to be from that country and you can get cheaper flights. Often get cheaper flights. Another great feature is when you arrive at your hotel and you manage to fend off the urge to go balls out drinking, but instead watching some Netflix show in your hotel room. The adult and responsible thing to do. If you're in a different country, you can log back into your own country and the shows you're used to seeing in your Netflix will appear. If you're more of the adventurous type, you can choose a different country and other shows will appear. Stuff you haven't seen before. Adventurous. NordVPN creates an encrypted tunnel for your data to travel in, so no one can spy on you and steal your data. And that's especially important if you're logging onto a public Wi-Fi, like in your hotel. I'm not trying to say your hotel will steal your data. They might though. But how do you know the Wi-Fi you're logging onto is the hotel's Wi-Fi? And not some other guy's Wi-Fi he's created for people to log on to. Called a man-in-the-middle attack. I can't imagine a man doing something like that though. Should be called woman-in-the-middle attack. With NordVPN, you won't have to worry about that. You're secure in that encrypted tunnel. NordVPN offers the Nord Security Bundle. Standard, NordVPN only, plus NordVPN plus NordPass, complete, NordVPN, NordPass and NordLocker. And you'll get a 4-month bonus on all packs and products for a 2-year subscription. Head to nordvpn.com/twostrokestuffing for those 4 months free on a 2-year subscription. It's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you, NordVPN. I'll give it a little less fuel. Been playing around with it for a good while now, much more than what you've seen in this video. Still getting too much fuel it seems, and I've got a lot of possibilities to add in more fuel. I'm gonna drastically reduce the main jet size to a 125. I also realized my little clamp didn't provide enough clamping pressure for this hose, and the jet in there is kind of small, so I don't think clamping this did anything. Should really install an inline valve here. Almost cutting main jet size in half. Let's see if that gets us anywhere. Running much worse with the small main jet, and it's running much hotter. It's definitely lean now. I'm starting to think this is ignition trouble. I haven't monitored the ignition with this unit, but say it's dropping every other cycle at like 13,000 RPM. That's like 200 cycles a second. Impossible for me to see that happening here. It just gives an average of what's going on. Makes sense though, because when you give it more throttle, there's higher dynamic compression. And if the ignition system is struggling already and you give it higher dynamic compression, it fails. Could help to give it more timing. Could also help to decrease the spark plug gap. Denso iridium racing plugs with a fine center and ground electrode. Quite a large gap there, probably like around 1 millimeter. Could also try a more normal plug. We'll start with advancing ignition timing. I made a little list here. Remove main jet, so back to square one. Increase ignition timing. If that doesn't help, decrease gap. I'll put that list here, so let's see it tomorrow. I think I've made enough noise for the neighbors for today. So tomorrow. First on my list today is remove the main jet and then increase ignition timing. I've added a step before this. Drill out that 125 main jet with a 1.5 millimeter drill. Makes it probably around 160 or something. Drill's a little bit oversized. Let's try that first. And then try increasing timing, decreasing the gap. And then we'll remove the main jet if it runs lean. If it runs okay, we're probably in the ballpark. We'll see. I'll try richening it up from here a little bit more. Let's leave fueling like it is now, and we'll add in 5 degrees more timing up top and see what happens. Seems like we're not getting enough pressure above the fuel level in the float bowl. When I let off, I get fuel up to the power jet. At full throttle, I don't, which might mean there's higher pressure across that jet inside the chamber versus in here. Let's try with the pitot tube again. Let's try closing up the spark plug gap. Gap to like at least 1 millimeter now. Let's take it down to like 0.5 and see what happens. We're getting somewhere now, running much better with the smaller plug gap. So obviously ignition wasn't coping. I can almost hold it at full throttle now. It's either getting lean or too rich at full throttle. First thing we'll try is removing the restrictor in this jet and see what happens. That should make it run much richer. If that makes it worse, we'll try plugging this, then try less and more timing. Try giving it less timing again and see what happens. Try upping the ignition timing again. 25 degrees. That seems dangerous. We'll have to try it. With 25 degrees of advance up at high RPM, it's running even better. That might be because it's running far too rich now, and it needs to ignite that mixture really early to get it going. I've got one thing we can try, which is almost plug and play. Hollendaren lent me this 4-channel DC CDI box a while back. Let's try hooking this up and connecting all 4 channels into that one single coil. We might burn up the unit, or the coil, or both, and even the engine. It's worth a try though. I might need to buy Hollendaren a new one of these. We'll see. How I wish I had the correct crimpers. I'm not gonna bore you with me crimping these pins onto these wires with the incorrect tools. I'll bring you back when I'm ready to assemble the connector. And I'll show you the result of my hard labor. Everything's hooked up. You can see here I'm taking all 4 ignition outputs, sending them into this large gauge wire to the coil. 4 capacitor stages into one coil. Should in theory give me 4 times the energy as with a single stage. I'm really hoping this will take us somewhere better, and I'm really annoyed with myself for not playing with the ignition earlier. The plan was to somewhat dial in fueling and then start dialing in the ignition system. Should have done it the other way around in this situation. Crossing fingers now. I never turned on the fuel pump. It's running better with this ignition unit with the 4 channels connected together. Higher spark energy help. I'm gonna switch out that Hyper Racing plug with this totally normal plug, gap to 0.3 millimeters, and we'll see how it behaves with this one. I'm more and more suspicious of that oil being the problem here. Cooling down the chamber too much and stealing too much energy while vaporizing in the combustion chamber. Or the cylinder before the combustion chamber. I could give it even more fuel, but it seems weird that it's running lean. It's not building any heat at all. Like 45 degrees at the plug Celsius, which is nothing. Let's try 30 degrees of ignition advance. It's at 25 now. Goes against everything I know about the 2-stroke engine. Things we know. With the weaker ignition, ran better with a leaner mixture. Smaller gap, plug gap, ran better with rich. Sure. mix. 4 caps into 1 coil, even better. Fitting a 15K roof with misfires and backfires and stuff. A couple of theories. Theory number 1, optimistic theory. Too much pressure when pipe hits. Too high cylinder pressure for the ignition to properly fire. Theory number 2, the pessimistic theory. Diluted fresh mix. Exhaust can't get rid of spent gases. I know methanol and nitromethane creates more product with the same amount of reactant versus gasoline, which means more exhaust gases. In theory anyway. Could be that at 15,000 RPM the exhaust pipe is too restrictive and it can't get rid of the spent gases. And the fresh mix gets diluted by spent gases and the mixture gets harder to ignite. And that's why a stronger ignition helps. Like you see in modern cars where they use really strong ignition systems to fire really lean mixtures. You could try chopping off the pipe at the end, removing that stinger stub and making the stinger restriction larger. As long as the stinger is the restriction in the system, and it should be, that could prove this theory. But it could also prove this theory, because with a larger stinger the pipe won't be as effective and you won't create as much cylinder pressure, not as strong pulses. Third theory, too much oil. I'm starting to doubt this is the problem. With a roots blower it would be easy to see the exhaust is backing up because pressure would rise a lot. Not so with the centrifugal supercharger. Its pressure is a function of RPM. One thing strengthening the pessimistic theory, we can run insane amounts of ignition timing up high and it doesn't seem to be bothered by it. 30 degrees when the pipe hits, that's like impossible. It's choking on its own exhaust. The larger stinger, less restrictive exhaust actually made it much worse. Which kind of disproves both my theories, the optimistic and the pessimistic one. I'm not sure where this leaves us. I think the best thing to do now is to sit down and make a mental list of things that can make your engine not rev like it's supposed to do. Maybe it is that oil. The oil vaporizing, stealing all the energy from the exhaust. I didn't have that problem years ago in the SPX engine though. And pipes work fine on RC engines, running even more oil than this. I'll think about it. And you think about it. See you next time. It's the heat. Or rather the lack thereof. That's the problem. That's my theory now. All that fuel and oil is making the fresh charge far too cold. Higher RPM, there's not enough time to vaporize it properly for it to combust. I think that's our problem. And that's the difference from when I was testing with the SPX engine. I was running a small radiator. It could heat up really fast. Now I'm running a really large water tank. It doesn't allow the cylinder to heat up. I think that's our problem. That's what we're gonna pursue in the next video. See you next time.